Thank you for joining and listening to the Rare Disease Matrix podcast. This is episode number 5, entitled You Need Good People, but What Kind? I'm your host for this podcast, Jason Colquitt. I am also CEO and founder of Across Healthcare. We're based outside of Atlanta, Georgia. The Rare Disease Matrix podcast will be released weekly as 10-minute episodes throughout the year. I hope that you're able to join us on this journey to learn a little bit more about rare disease, what it takes to manage the software business in the rare disease space, and the successes and failures that might ensue. At the time of this recording, it is February, and what does that mean? It's Rare Disease Month. Hopefully you're seeing and hearing about rare diseases in your sphere of influence. If not, you may need to be the one sharing. So I highly encourage that. I talked several podcasts back also about Rare Disease Day coming up at the end of the month on Monday, February 28th. I encourage you, if you have been impacted by a rare disease, to be gearing up to share your story in some way that day. If you have nothing planned, I encourage you to come join us on our Discord server. I've talked about this in previous episodes as well, the Rare and Relatable server on Discord. It's going to be an amazing day there and lots of activities planned. Go ahead and jump in now, as we daily are having some amazing conversation with friends that have joined from around the world. It's really cool to see the European folks jumping on the server. So join us. It's an amazing place with much experience, wisdom, and love to be shared with anyone who joins. Okay, so let's jump into the topic today. You need good people, right? Hopefully you can relate and have a previous job that brings this concept to life for you. My progression through my jobs in life have included, but are not limited to, I worked at a sandwich shop, so I can make a killer sub sandwich, a landscaping business. I was an apartment manager. I was also a maintenance man across many apartments, and I also was a manager at a pizza place. So I did this before I got into healthcare, and I know this concept that I'm talking about here today resonates outside of just software organizations and all those previous jobs that I mentioned. The bottom line is you cannot do it alone. You need good people. Yes, you can find a job where you may be siloed and not interact with anybody, but I guarantee you if you dig deep somewhere, somehow you're dependent on others and you hope they're good. How well you succeed in a job many times depends on the people you surround yourself with. Don't get me wrong, you need to be putting in your part, but the people around you make a huge difference. As a leader of an organization, you're constantly looking for a team that can accelerate your organization to new abilities, reach new goals, and go beyond the things you may have thought possible. At Across Healthcare, I constantly say this. I'm blessed to say I have some of those amazing people surrounding me that do just that. I know most of you have never run a software company, and as part of today's conversations, I wanted to give you a glimpse into the types and roles of people we have that allow us to build our Matrix Rare Disease software. This will be a good prelude, as I'm planning to have some of the team members come on in the future episodes, and this will give you some context of how they fit into the organization. Now, I'll stop here and say this may be totally foreign to you, or it may make a lot of sense. So at this part, just be prepared for some of the terms I'm going to use, as well as hopefully you jump in and you get to understand how we fit as an organization and with these roles. So the first one, and these are in no particular order, I'm going to talk about are project managers. Typical acronym is PM that we see for this, and we call them PMs. So and project managers are not just isolated to software, so you may have some relationship with this in the past. And just as the name implies, these are the guys that coordinate all of the things that you need to do, make sure you're doing them on time. I know for myself, I need these project managers in place so that the company can run seamlessly, the clients can get what they need on time. All of those aspects of that project management mindset that you could be imagining now in your head is what we're looking for and what we define within that role. So very tedious person, attention to detail, takes awesome notes in meetings. Those has action items afterwards. So those are the type people that you'd find in a project manager. The next role I'll talk about is we call it a BA or a product role. That BA stands for business analyst. The product is a term, we call them product manager. So over the course of my history in software in general, I've seen a merge of those terms. Previously, we just had business analysts. Then out of that came a product manager. And I'll kind of relay the distinction there. But business analysts are responsible for, just defining the requirements of the system. So they take and listen to whatever the client has asked for, and they convert that into a more technical or structured format so that when we get to the role of the engineers and developers, they and the people that are testing the software, again, another role we'll get to in a minute, that they can understand what needs to be built and what requirements are. And I think in a previous episode I also talked about user stories. So they create these personas of, I am a rare disease patient, here's what I want to do in the system, and they really break down those aspects of those user stories of how a user would be using your software. Product managers, similar, we use that in a similar manner, but they're more responsible for the overall product. So they're looking from a product standpoint. They're all the time trying to figure out what task do we get into each release? How does that work? So that's one of the aspects of a BA and a product manager. Next role, as I already mentioned, is our roles of engineers and developers. So I use those terms interchangeably. Some people might get offended, but in a lot of times we just call them our devs. So coming from the developer standpoint. So developers are hugely important. Obviously, they're the ones that are heads down in the technology and build out anything that is needed from a technology standpoint. So that could be surrounding the database. And you do find specialists. So somebody can say, I'm a database architect, or I work in the database side of things. So they can specialize on different aspects of the software and the technical aspects. So those guys are hugely important, as they're the ones writing the software itself and making sure it's coded appropriately per the BA or product manager's requirements. Next, I'll roll to the next role I, again, already mentioned, is quality assurance. So a lot of times we just call them QA. In a previous company, we called them software validation testers. So these are people that are validating the software. They're making sure there are no bugs in the software. I think we talked about that in our earlier episode as well, and making sure everything fits and is really without error once it goes out. And they're also checking to make sure whatever that product manager, business analyst wrote, that it matches their requirement. Whatever the engineer developed matches that requirement that was required. So they actually create what's called test cases. So they're constantly rolling through and creating test cases for, all right, we want this rare disease patient to be able to do this function. I need to test that, hey, if they come in, can they type this? Can they, insert this? Will they see this if they do this? So all those type things is that quality assurance role. The next set of roles, pretty common among most companies. We have our HR functions, our admin type functions that keep me straight, accounting and finance. So those are pretty standard, but those are the other roles that we have here at Across Healthcare that are hugely necessary to keep people employed, keep us on task from a financial standpoint, and keep us moving. So hopefully this gives you a good sense of the type people it takes to run a software company. And again, we're blessed at Across Healthcare to have some amazing people that fill each of these roles. Stay tuned, and in future episodes, you'll get to meet some of these guys and gals that I'm honored and, again, blessed to get to work with on a daily basis. With that, I wish you a great week. I appreciate you listening in and look forward to seeing you again next week on the Rare Disease Matrix podcast.